There is a defining moment in every toxic relationship, a moment of awakening. It is the moment when your spirit says, enough, not out of anger, not out of revenge, but out of clarity. And when that moment comes, something shifts. The atmosphere changes. The person who once felt powerful begins to sense that their control is slipping. And when a narcissist realizes you are truly done, when they feel the grip of control leaving their hands, they reveal their dirtiest final move. Tonight we will not approach this emotionally. We will approach it educationally. Because when you understand the pattern, you remove its power. The greatest power you can wield in the face of a narcissist is calm detachment. This is not indifference. This is not coldness. It is a deliberate, disciplined state of being that communicates clearly. You are no longer a source of manipulation. You are no longer available for their control, and you are no longer participating in the game they set for you. A narcissist feeds on emotional reaction. Every tear, every outburst, every desperate attempt to argue or explain feeds their sense of dominance. When you stop reacting, you withdraw their oxygen. This is what makes calm detachment so threatening to them. It is the ultimate exposure of their illusion of power. They are accustomed to bending others through fear, guilt, or charm, but they are unprepared to confront a person whose center is unmoved by their theatrics. The moment you stop responding to their provocations, you create an internal shift in yourself. This shift is subtle, but transformative. You move from being a participant in their drama to being an observer. You are no longer trapped by the emotional cycles they impose. Every narcissist has a set of predictable final moves. A smear campaign, a manipulative apology, emotional baiting, hoovering, and sometimes the recruitment of allies to triangulate and pressure you. These actions are designed to provoke, to make you feel fear, guilt, anger, or doubt. But when you maintain calm detachment, these strategies fail to produce the intended effect. Instead of losing control, you gain clarity. And clarity is your strongest defense. To stand firm, first recognize that detachment is not passive. It is an active exercise of self-governance. It requires awareness, anticipation, and emotional discipline. You must train yourself to recognize the signs of the final move before it escalates. The apology may be too perfectly worded, the crisis too sudden, the insults too pointed. In these moments, you are not called to engage, you are called to observe. Ask yourself, what is the motive? What is the desired outcome for the narcissist? The answer is almost always the same. They want a reaction. They want to re-establish control. They want proof that they still matter in your emotional world. When you deny them that, you take the single thing they cannot manipulate, your calm, collected authority over your own mind and heart. Next, you must understand that emotional independence is a skill that develops over time. It is reinforced each time you resist reacting impulsively. Every moment you refuse to argue, justify, or explain, you strengthen your capacity to maintain detachment. This is the foundation of resilience. Your calmness sends a signal louder than any confrontation. You are not available for their manipulation, and your peace is non-negotiable. A narcissist can handle anger, they can tolerate chaos, but serenity and self-possession are foreign to them, and it unsettles their sense of control. Your calm detachment becomes an invisible shield that no manipulation can penetrate. Another critical element is self-validation. Narcissists thrive when you seek external validation from them, when their approval matters more than your own. Calm detachment requires that you reclaim this power. You affirm your worth, your decisions, and your emotions independently of their approval. This self-affirmation is what allows you to stand firm even when the final move arrives. You do not react out of fear or guilt. You respond, or more often choose not to respond, out of awareness of your own value. This is a revolutionary shift because it transforms your energy from one of vulnerability to one of empowerment. It is also important to recognize that calm detachment does not mean isolation. It means engagement on your own terms. You can set boundaries, enforce consequences, and protect your space without allowing their presence to dictate your emotional state. You are not disengaging from life. You are disengaging from their manipulative tactics. By maintaining this clarity, you avoid the traps that often ensnare those who are still emotionally entangled. Ultimately, calm detachment is a declaration of freedom. It communicates without words that the cycle of control is broken. It shows the narcissist that their final moves, no matter how calculated or vicious, are powerless against someone who has mastered their inner world. Your reaction, or the deliberate lack of one, is the measure of your strength. It is the ultimate proof that you are no longer a participant in their game and that you have reclaimed your authority over your own life. In this moment, you are untouchable, not because of their weakness, but because of your unwavering self-possession. And that is a victory no manipulation can ever reverse. The moment a narcissist realizes you are done is not accidental. It is a precise psychological trigger, almost like an internal alarm system going off. They are attuned to control in ways most people cannot perceive. While you may think they are simply noticing your withdrawal, the truth is much deeper. What they detect is a threat to their identity, a crack in the carefully constructed image of power and influence that they have spent years cultivating. This moment of recognition, your firm detachment, is what activates the final move, and understanding it is essential if you are going to navigate this phase with clarity and strength. A narcissist's behavior is deeply rooted in insecurity disguised as arrogance. Their confidence is a performance, and their composure is a shield. When you begin to emotionally detach, when your energy no longer flows to them, they perceive a loss that feels catastrophic. They are not only losing control over you, they are facing the potential collapse of the entire narrative they have constructed about themselves. To them, your departure is not a personal decision. It is a threat to their survival. This psychological trigger, the realization that they no longer have influence, is what shifts their thinking from strategic manipulation to desperate action. It is no longer a subtle pattern of gaslighting or charm. It becomes urgent, reckless, and at times shockingly cruel. Their final move is born from the fear that you might remain beyond their reach. You might continue to live your life on your terms, unshaken, unbothered, free from their control. This scenario is intolerable to a narcissist because it exposes the fact that all their previous efforts were dependent on your compliance. When they realize that your compliance is gone, they enter survival mode. Psychologically, this trigger taps into a primal fear, the fear of being irrelevant. A narcissist measures their value through the eyes of others, particularly those they seek to dominate. Once you remove yourself from the equation, they feel stripped of significance. This is why their behavior often escalates in intensity. They may employ smear campaigns, manipulation through others, sudden apologies, or even attempts to provoke emotional responses. Each action is designed to test if the trigger can be reversed, if they can regain what they perceive as theirs. It is important to understand that this reaction is not about you personally. It is about their internal system of validation, which has been disrupted. They are responding to the threat of loss, not the reality of the relationship. By seeing your emotional independence, they experience a cognitive dissonance so profound that it can drive extreme measures. They may escalate the intensity of their attempts because their internal alarm is screaming, "You are slipping away, and with you, my control, my image, my relevance." Knowing this pattern equips you to respond strategically rather than emotionally. If you understand the trigger, their recognition of your finality, you can anticipate the behavior without being caught off guard. You can see through the smoke of manipulation and recognize that their actions are a desperate effort to reclaim what they cannot. When they attempt to provoke, you maintain composure. When they spread false narratives, you maintain your truth. Your calm presence, your unwavering detachment directly addresses the trigger without feeding it. The power in understanding this psychological trigger is that it transforms fear into empowerment. You no longer wonder, why is this happening now, or did I push them too far? You recognize that their final move is a reaction to their own internal alarm system and not a reflection of your worth or actions. By maintaining clarity, you protect your emotional energy and prevent their desperate tactics from pulling you back into a cycle of manipulation. Ultimately, the moment a narcissist senses your detachment is a defining point in the dynamic. It is the point where you transition from being their participant to being their observer. You are no longer operating within their narrative. By understanding this psychological trigger, you are no longer vulnerable to surprise or intimidation. You hold the map while they wander in the maze of their own desperation. And in that you find not just freedom, but authority over your own life, unshaken by the chaos they attempt to unleash. A narcissist's ego is fragile, not resilient. It is a structure built entirely on the perception of control, admiration, and dominance. Every word you spoke, every moment of attention you offered, every response you gave, all served as bricks reinforcing that structure. But the moment you stop feeding it, even slightly, the entire foundation begins to shake. This is where ego injury enters the picture, and it is far more dangerous than you might imagine. Ego injury is not merely bruised pride. It is the realization that their carefully curated identity, The persona of invincibility, superiority, and perfection is suddenly questioned. And when a narcissist feels that their identity is under threat, it is not reason or logic that guides their behavior, it is fear. Fear transforms into anger, and anger transforms into action. But this action is rarely measured. It is desperate. It is reckless. It is designed to regain the illusion of control at any cost. You must understand that narcissists do not operate from morality or empathy. Their actions are calculated, but when ego is injured, calculation is replaced by panic. This is why their final moves are often dramatic, chaotic, and manipulative. They may launch attacks you never anticipated, not because you provoked them, but because the mere act of walking away triggers their deepest insecurities. In essence, the more they sense their control slipping, the more extreme their reactions become. One common manifestation of this ego injury is projection. The narcissist will accuse you of the very faults they themselves possess, turning the mirror outward to shift attention away from their vulnerability. This projection is not subtle, it is aggressive and targeted. It is meant to confuse you, to make you doubt your perception, to force you back into the cycle of validation and explanation. In their mind, if they can make you feel guilty or unstable, they can regain dominance. Then comes impulsivity. A narcissist whose ego is injured will often make decisions without forethought, simply to restore their sense of power. They might fabricate stories, manipulate allies, or orchestrate crises, all in a frantic attempt to reclaim relevance. Their actions are reckless because the driving force is not strategy but fear. And this is where many people make the mistake of assuming that these behaviors are normal reactions. They are not. They are the result of a deeply wounded ego operating without ethical restraint. The danger of ego injury lies in its unpredictability. A narcissist may have followed a predictable pattern for months or even years, but the moment they perceive that they are losing control, the pattern breaks. Calculated tactics are replaced with extreme measures. They might attempt to discredit you publicly, invade your personal boundaries, or attempt emotional sabotage. These are not isolated incidents. They are the culmination of fear-driven behavior that arises when the narcissist's identity feels threatened. And here is the crucial insight. The intensity of their final move is directly proportional to the depth of your detachment. The more you assert boundaries, the less you react to provocation. And the more you maintain calm detachment, the more they feel their ego unraveling. Your silence, your composure, and your consistency act as a mirror, reflecting the futility of their tactics back at them. It is this reflection that drives them to desperate measures, often more extreme than anything they attempted before. However, there is a silver lining. Understanding the psychology behind this desperation allows you to anticipate it, recognize it, and neutralize its impact. When you know that their reckless behavior is fueled by wounded ego rather than genuine threat, you can choose detachment over reaction. You can observe without absorbing, respond without conceding, and enforce boundaries without compromise. Your awareness becomes armor, and their desperation becomes predictable noise. Ego injury, therefore, is a turning point, not a victory for them. It is the moment when their power is exposed as borrowed, conditional, and ultimately fragile. The more they lash out, the clearer it becomes that their control depended entirely on your engagement. And the more you hold firm, the more your inner strength asserts itself, not through confrontation, but through unwavering self-governance. In this way, what may initially appear as a threat is actually an opportunity. An ego-driven, desperate narcissist is a mirror of what they truly are. A person dependent on validation for survival. Your clarity, your detachment, and your refusal to participate in their manipulation strip away the illusion of power. And when you maintain that stance, you emerge not just free from manipulation, but stronger, wiser, and fully in control of your own life. When a narcissist realizes that their control is slipping, their reaction is often swift, strategic, and calculated. One of the most common weapons in their arsenal is what psychologists call the smear campaign. This is not a simple outburst of anger or frustration. It is a deliberate effort to manipulate perception, rewrite history, and protect their fragile ego. Understanding the smear campaign is crucial because it allows you to recognize it for what it truly is, a desperate attempt to maintain dominance over a situation they can no longer control. The smear campaign begins with narrative manipulation. The narcissist will carefully craft a story designed to depict themselves as the victim and you as the aggressor. Every interaction you had, every conversation, every decision may suddenly be reframed to support this distorted reality. What you perceive as honest communication or boundaries becomes, in their retelling, evidence of wrongdoing. This is not about truth, it is about image. Narcissists live in a world where perception equals power, and the more people believe in their constructed reality, the more control they feel they retain. Part of this process often involves planting seeds of doubt among people in your life. Friends, family members, colleagues, anyone who might witness your choices or hear your side of the story can become unwitting participants in the manipulation. The narcissist may tell partial truths, exaggerate events, or invent entirely false scenarios. They may present themselves as the injured party, as someone who was deeply wronged, and they will portray your actions as unreasonable, irrational, or cruel. The goal is not to communicate effectively. The goal is to isolate you and make others question your credibility. It is essential to remember that the smear campaign is a reflection of insecurity, not reality. Narcissists have an unyielding need to be admired and validated, and when they sense that admiration slipping, they perceive it as a threat to their very existence. Their ego is so entwined with their reputation that any perceived loss can trigger panic, and the smear campaign is their primary tool to regain control. They are less concerned with fairness or truth than with the illusion of power. By projecting blame onto you and manipulating others' perceptions, they attempt to re-establish authority over the narrative and, by extension, over you. Another hallmark of this tactic is the selective targeting of vulnerabilities. A narcissist knows which buttons to push, not just in you, but in others. They are experts at identifying insecurities, relationships, and social dynamics that they can exploit. For example, they may subtly question your reliability or morality to mutual friends or colleagues. They may hint that you are unstable or untrustworthy without ever providing concrete evidence. This ambiguity is intentional. It keeps others uncertain and allows the narcissist to control the interpretation of events. The smear campaign is not about a single confrontation. It is about shaping perception over time so that you are left isolated, doubted, or second-guessed. The emotional impact of a smear campaign can be profound. It is designed to provoke guilt, shame, and defensiveness. You may feel the urge to defend yourself, to explain, to justify. But here lies the power of detachment. Responding emotionally plays into their hands. Every defense, every rebuttal, every attempt to correct the narrative becomes evidence that they are still capable of eliciting a reaction. Awareness is the key to disarming this tactic. Understanding that the smear campaign is predictable, intentional, and rooted in fear allows you to observe it without internalizing it. Silence and consistency become your most powerful tools. It is also important to recognize that people outside the narcissist's influence will often see through the distortion once patterns emerge. Those who truly know you will recognize the discrepancy between your behavior and the narrative being presented. Awareness and patience allow you to maintain integrity and credibility, even in the face of these manipulations. You cannot control what a narcissist says, but you can control your response, your composure, and your boundaries. The smear campaign only works if you engage with it emotionally. If you remain steadfast, it loses potency. Ultimately, the smear campaign is a last-ditch effort by someone whose power is slipping away. It is a reflection of desperation, insecurity, and fear of exposure. By understanding it as a predictable, strategic tactic rather than a personal attack, you reclaim authority over your own narrative and protect your emotional well-being. Knowledge is not just power, it is armor. The narcissist smear campaign reveals their weaknesses more than it threatens your strength, and by maintaining clarity, detachment, and patience, you transform what is meant to intimidate into an opportunity to solidify your freedom, peace, and dignity. Hoovering is one of the most cunning tactics a narcissist uses when they sense that they are losing their grip. It is a desperate attempt to reclaim the supply they have lost, disguised as something harmless, even loving. The term comes from the idea of vacuuming. They are trying to suck you back into the orbit of their control. But this is not about love or reconciliation. It is about strategy, manipulation, and survival. Understanding the psychology behind hoovering will give you insight, clarity, and most importantly, immunity. The first thing to recognize is that hoovering often appears as a sudden, unexpected change. The narcissist may act remorseful, apologetic, or even vulnerable in a way you have never seen before. They may confess to past mistakes, admit to wrongs, or even promise transformation. But this is rarely sincere. It is designed to penetrate your defenses, exploit your empathy, and lure you into an emotional response. The brilliance of this tactic lies in its subtlety. It doesn't announce itself as a trap. Instead, it comes wrapped in the guise of sincerity, curiosity, or crisis, making you question your own detachment. They may craft elaborate scenarios to invoke guilt or fear. Sometimes they fabricate emergencies, financial, emotional, or even health-related, to provoke concern or prompt your assistance. I don't know what I would do without you, they might say, or I'm losing everything and you're my only hope. In this moment, they are testing boundaries, measuring whether you still have the same reactions you once did. Every word, every pause, every display of vulnerability is calculated. They are observing whether your emotional supply is still available, whether they can re-establish the control they once had. Hoovering can also take the form of nostalgia. They will remind you of the good times, replay memories that once created joy, intimacy, or trust. This tactic is designed to bypass your rational mind and access your emotions. By reigniting feelings of attachment, they hope to weaken your resolve. You may find yourself questioning whether the person you left is truly the person you thought you knew. This is precisely why awareness is critical. Recognizing the hoovering tactic allows you to see it not as a reflection of change in them, but as a reflection of fear, insecurity, and desperation. A common form of hoovering is through confession. The narcissist might suddenly reveal secrets, admit to lies, or disclose betrayals as if to earn your trust. But these confessions are strategic. They are intended to manipulate your sense of morality or to trigger your protective instincts. By making you feel that only you can understand, forgive, or save them, they attempt to re-establish their dominance. This is the psychological lever. They know that if they can provoke even a momentary lapse of empathy, they regain access to your emotional world. It is essential to understand that hoovering is never random. It is always purposeful. Every tactic, every word, every display of change is calculated to provoke a reaction. The narcissist studies your patterns, your triggers, your weaknesses, and uses them like instruments in a symphony of manipulation. They do not care about truth, they care about results. Your response, whether it is anger, sadness, or engagement, signals that the supply line is still active. Silence, detachment, and emotional consistency are the most powerful responses you can offer. When you recognize hoovering for what it is, the power shifts back to you. Knowledge becomes armor. Awareness becomes your shield. You no longer need to negotiate with deception or validate falsehoods. You no longer need to justify your detachment. The hoovering tactics that once seemed irresistible now appear as desperate maneuvers, predictable and impotent. Your calm, steady presence in the face of manipulation communicates more strength than any confrontation ever could. Ultimately, the hoovering tactic is a testament to the narcissist's fear, the fear of losing relevance, of losing control, and of facing the reality that the person they sought to dominate is no longer available. Your emotional independence neutralizes their strategy. By refusing to respond to manipulation, by maintaining your boundaries, and by trusting your own clarity, you demonstrate the ultimate lesson: they cannot take what you do not give. And that is the most empowering truth of all. The sixth tactic a narcissist will use when they sense that you are truly done is emotional baiting. This is a subtle yet powerful manipulation designed to test your boundaries and provoke a reaction. Emotional baiting is rooted in the narcissist's desperate need to remain relevant in your life. They recognize that control is slipping from their hands, and their instinct is to create a scenario where you will emotionally respond. They do not seek understanding or reconciliation. They do not seek connection. Their goal is simple: to elicit a response that reaffirms their influence over you. Emotional baiting can take many forms. It might appear as a sudden, unexpected apology, a confession, or an exaggerated display of vulnerability. On the surface, it may seem like a sincere attempt to reconcile, but this is not love or contrition. It is a calculated tactic to pull you back into the cycle of emotional engagement. They may dramatize minor events, exaggerate their struggles, or attempt to evoke guilt by presenting themselves as victims. Every word, every action is carefully crafted to trigger the emotions they know have kept you attached in the past. The narcissist is highly skilled in predicting your emotional responses. They have observed you closely, learned your triggers, and understand how to push your buttons. This knowledge allows them to design bait that is almost irresistible to someone who has not yet fully detached. They may exploit your empathy, your sense of fairness, or your desire for closure. This is why awareness is critical. Recognizing that these actions are bait, not genuine attempts at connection, prevents the trap from being successful. It is important to understand the psychological mechanism behind emotional baiting. The narcissist's sense of self is fragile. Their ego is dependent on your reactions and your attention. When you remain silent, calm, and composed, you are denying them the very thing they feed on. This silence can be threatening to them because it reflects autonomy and emotional independence, the exact qualities they cannot control or manipulate. In response, they intensify their efforts to provoke a reaction. Every insult, tearful confession, or dramatic story is an attempt to break your composure and elicit the response that proves they still hold power over your emotions. Resisting emotional baiting requires a deep understanding of your own boundaries and emotional triggers. You must remind yourself consistently that your value, your peace, and your clarity do not depend on their acknowledgement or approval. When you encounter attempts to bait you, pause, observe, recognize the tactic for what it is. A predictable strategy designed to manipulate, respond with measured composure, or in many cases, no response at all. Your detachment is your strength. Emotional restraint denies the narcissist the gratification of seeing you react. It interrupts the cycle they have relied on for years. Another layer of emotional baiting is the indirect approach. The narcissist may not confront you directly. Instead, they might manipulate situations through others, creating tension or spreading rumors that are meant to elicit a reaction. They may plant doubts or provoke jealousy, using subtle comments or orchestrated scenarios designed to make you question your choices. These indirect forms of baiting rely on your emotional investment and desire to defend your reputation or relationships. Recognizing these tactics as extensions of the same baiting strategy allows you to maintain clarity and protect your energy. Finally, it is essential to understand that emotional baiting is not a reflection of your weakness, but of their desperation. It reveals their fear of losing relevance, their need to control perception, and their inability to accept boundaries. When you resist the bait, you are demonstrating emotional maturity and strength. You are affirming that your emotional independence is non-negotiable. You are declaring that their strategies no longer have authority over your life. Remaining steadfast in the face of emotional baiting transforms the dynamic. It is the moment you shift from being a participant in their manipulations to being an observer of predictable patterns. You no longer react because you understand the game. You respond with intention, not impulse. Every time you resist the bait, you reclaim your power. You prove that the narcissist's final moves, no matter how dramatic or provocative, are powerless against someone who has mastered self-control and clarity of mind. In essence, emotional baiting is the narcissist's last attempt to regain influence. It is their final plea disguised as drama, their desperate attempt to provoke you into giving them relevance. But when met with calm detachment and unwavering clarity, it becomes ineffective. Awareness, boundaries, and emotional resilience are your shields. Silence becomes your strongest response, and in that silence lies your ultimate victory. When a narcissist feels their control slipping, and every other tactic seems ineffective, they will turn to one of their most insidious strategies, playing the victim to recruit others to their cause. This is a psychological maneuver designed to manipulate perception, create allies, and maintain influence even when their direct access to you has ended. Understanding this tactic is crucial because it allows you to recognize it for what it is and prevent it from weakening your resolve. A narcissist's identity is fragile. Their sense of self is tightly intertwined with how others perceive them. When you stop responding to their manipulations, it threatens not just their ego, but the very image they have meticulously built over time. In their mind, if they cannot control you directly, they can at least control the narrative. This is where the victim act comes in. They present themselves as wronged, misunderstood, or hurt, crafting a story that paints you as the aggressor. They know that when others believe their story, it can create social pressure, confusion, and even doubt in your own mind. They rely on perception more than reality, because perception is their true power. To amplify the impact of this tactic, narcissists often recruit what psychologists call flying monkeys. These are individuals who are either unwittingly drawn into the drama or willingly complicit because they gain some benefit, status, attention, or alignment with the narcissist's influence. Flying monkeys become extensions of the narcissist's control. They repeat the narrative, question your decisions, and sometimes even confront you directly, not realizing that they are being manipulated into a role that serves the narcissist's agenda. This is why it is critical to recognize that the people involved in this drama are often pawns rather than independent actors. Their actions are not necessarily malicious toward you, they are instruments of the narcissist's design. The key to navigating this manipulation lies in awareness. When you understand that the narcissist's portrayal of themselves as a victim is a calculated strategy, it removes the emotional weight it carries. You begin to see the tactic for what it is, an attempt to provoke guilt, shame, or fear. The more you resist engaging emotionally, the less effective the strategy becomes. Silence and detachment are your greatest defenses. By refusing to participate, you deny them the reaction they crave, and you maintain the moral and emotional high ground. It is also important to recognize the psychological principle at play. Narcissists depend on triangulation. They divide, confuse, and destabilize by inserting themselves between relationships and perceptions. When flying monkeys take their side, it's not a reflection of your failure, but a reflection of the narcissist's ability to manipulate social dynamics. Awareness allows you to separate the tactic from your own self-worth. Their success in recruiting others does not diminish your clarity or your freedom. It only highlights the narcissist's need for validation and control, which are no longer available to them through you. In addition, understanding this tactic empowers you to establish boundaries without aggression. You do not need to confront every person who has been drawn into the narcissist narrative. You do not need to defend your choices in every conversation. Instead, you protect your energy, maintain your peace, and continue living according to your values. The narcissist's allies can speak, react, or attempt to influence, but their impact is neutralized when you remain grounded and consistent. Your calm detachment signals that their manipulations are ineffective and that the influence they seek over your life has ended. Finally, this phase is a test of your emotional independence. It measures how firmly you have internalized your authority over your own mind, emotions, and actions. By recognizing that the narcissist is projecting victimhood to manipulate social perception, you step into clarity. You understand that their power is performative. It only exists when fed by your attention and engagement. By refusing to feed the system, you reclaim your sovereignty. You no longer need validation from them, from their narrative, or from anyone aligned with their agenda. Your freedom becomes visible, not through confrontation or argument, but through your unwavering consistency, your emotional stability, and your refusal to participate in the drama. In essence, when a narcissist plays the victim to recruit others, they reveal their desperation, their fear, and the depth of their dependence on manipulation. But for you, it is a signal to rise higher, stand firmer, and hold your ground with dignity. Awareness transforms the tactic from a threat into a lesson, from chaos into opportunity, and from manipulation into empowerment. You are not just surviving their final moves, you are mastering your emotional independence and stepping into a space of true authority over your life. Your calm detachment is the ultimate threat to a narcissist, because it exposes a truth they have spent their entire life hiding. Their power is borrowed, temporary, and dependent on others' reactions. From the moment you stop providing emotional fuel, the foundation of their control begins to crumble. To understand why this is so powerful, you must first grasp how they operate. A narcissist thrives on influence. They need your attention, your validation, your fear, or even your anger. Without your participation, they are left with only a reflection of their own ego, which is fragile, inflated, and desperately insecure. The realization that their usual tactics no longer provoke a response terrifies them more than any confrontation could, because it strips away the illusion that they matter. When a narcissist senses that you are truly done, everything changes. The subtle manipulations, the silent intimidation, the charm that once disarmed you, it all escalates into a calculated final attempt. This is the moment they will deploy their dirtiest strategies, hoping to force a reaction, regain control, or salvage an image that is slipping from their grasp. They might smear your reputation, twist the truth, or even attempt to recruit others to defend their narrative. These are not acts of love, remorse, or reconciliation. They are acts of survival, a desperate strategic effort to restore the dominance they feel slipping through their fingers. But your calm detachment is an unshakable wall that they cannot penetrate, no matter how cunning or ruthless their tactics may be. Emotional independence is the key. A narcissist will test you relentlessly at this stage, because they know that if you remain grounded, the power they sought to wield over you evaporates. Every provocation, every insult, every manipulation is designed to elicit a response that reestablishes their control. Yet, when you maintain composure, when you refuse to engage in the drama, you effectively disarm their most dangerous weapon, your reaction. Your silence, your refusal to participate, communicates more authority than any argument or confrontation ever could. It signals that you are no longer dependent on their approval, that your peace and clarity are not negotiable, and that your life is no longer subject to their influence. This stage is also where flying monkeys, friends, family, or colleagues who are manipulated into participating may enter the scene. The narcissist will attempt to apply social pressure, questioning your decisions or sowing doubt, hoping that external voices will force you back into submission. Here, Your detachment is a shield. When you respond with clarity, consistency, and composure, you teach those around you that the manipulation is not real, that your choices are grounded in self-awareness and personal integrity. You demonstrate that the truth of your emotional independence is stronger than the lies or dramatics that a narcissist can manufacture. The brilliance of your calm detachment is that it transforms their final move from a threat into a predictable pattern. Once you recognize it for what it is, fear disguised as aggression, desperation disguised as charm, you neutralize its power. You understand that every tactic is a mirror reflecting their insecurities, not an indictment of your worth. The more you internalize this understanding, the less capable they are of disturbing your inner peace. Your authority comes not from confrontation, not from retaliation, but from the unshakable knowledge of your own value and the deliberate choice to protect your boundaries. Remaining calm, detached, and unwavering in the face of their last desperate efforts is the highest form of resistance. It is a statement of sovereignty over your own life, your emotions, and your destiny. You are no longer a participant in their games. You are an observer, a strategist, and most importantly, a person who refuses to allow someone else's insecurities to dictate your reality. In this moment, the narcissist realizes that you are gone, not just physically or emotionally, but spiritually. They confront the one thing they cannot control, your independence, your clarity, your refusal to be manipulated, and your freedom from their influence. This is the power of calm detachment. It does not just protect you, it transforms you. It shifts your focus from their chaos to your own growth. It teaches you to respond with wisdom rather than reaction, to enforce boundaries rather than beg for understanding, and to claim dignity rather than engage in pointless battles. Your unwavering presence in your own truth forces the narcissist's strategies to fail because they rely entirely on your participation to succeed. And when they finally realize that you are done, you will have achieved the ultimate victory, not revenge, not retaliation, but the freedom and authority that come from mastering yourself and refusing to be anyone's tool, target, or pawn.